just didn't say multi-nominated.
Multi-nom, 4 Emmy nominations for this one, but you guys are swimming in nominations. But yeah, I guess first off, how does it feel, guys? Because you guys are really keeping the Encanto train running. I think people are still excited, and it's been probably 2 years, 3 years since the film came out.
Well, I mean, you were part of the whole story, so you should say that.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because the movie fell into my lap because they called and they were like, we have this special movie and we want you to choreograph it, and they told me a little bit about the film, and I was like, I don't know if I'm the right person. You know, this is it's a movie about Colombian family, and I'm not Colombian. You know what I mean? I mean, and so I felt like maybe I'm not the right person. And then they were like, yeah, but it's a story about family, and you understand family. And I was like, you're right, I need to do this, absolutely. And I read the script, and the first thing we did was Bruno. And I went into a little room, and we started choreographing Bruno, and I did it in a day. And I had so many Latinx dancers. I had 10 Latinx dancers with me, and I shot it on my iPhone. And I cut it together or whatever, and I did, we turned it in, and they called back and they were like, whatever you're doing, let's keep this train running. And I felt like, from the beginning, I just felt an instant connection with the film and the story. And then to see it pick up and to translate and for the world to embrace it like they did, and then now get to do it live, because that's all I really wanted to do, was do this live. Like that was, and so when they called, I was like, oh, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for. Because in film, it's one thing but when you're in front in costume live, there's another energy that takes over, and that's what we were able to do with the special.
Yeah. But getting into the special, I mean, this is something that's so epic, even though Full is known for that kind of epic musical event. In the set and vision of this really stand out, and so I kind of want to hear what was the day one sort of conceiving of this coming together on your part, Gabe.
Well, I'm not one who loves going on a recce. You know, you go to the location and start thinking, sometimes they're like, it's miles away, and you're like, is that the best use of my day? I'm going to sit in the car most of the day. And this particular recce was me getting on a plane from London, flying out to Los Angeles to go and look at the Hollywood Bowl and then fly home. I'm like, this is insane. Surely this is not the best use of anyone's time. But we came, myself, Sally Wood, who's the other exec on the show, and Lou Fox, who's our head of live, and we came to look at the Hollywood Bowl. And you know, for a bunch of guys and girls from the UK, where we don't ever sit outside at any of them, ever, because it's freezing. Unless you want to go skiing, you're inside. So we're outside, and we're like, we walk into this venue and we're like, wow, this place is like magic, the Hollywood Bowl. And we're like, I get why Disney want to be here, this is magical. And we walk up to the top at the back of the Hollywood Bowl, which we only really went all the way to the back because we were on a bit of a fitness run. We were like, the steps up the back there. I'm doing a week's worth of work. So we go all the way to the back, and we look down, and you see right at the back, you see this tiny stage, and you see the Hollywood, like the hills of Hollywood. And out of nowhere, we all looked at each other, and we were just like, that's the poster of Encanto. If we can put the casita where the stage is, and have it set against the hills in the backdrop, we can effectively make this place look like the poster. And that was the starting point. And then it was just a case of persuading everyone at Disney, because there's all these different departments. So this was for Disney Plus, but then Disney Animation have the film, so they have to sign off. And so we had to pitch to loads of Disney folk about what we wanted to do and how we wanted to do it. And as I was saying to you before, the best thing about this was sometimes when you pitch something, someone will buy the show, you get a 20-page treatment with beautiful pictures and great ideas, and they go, we're having the show, and you deliver the budget, and they go, no, we want it for 20% less. And you go, I'm not sure I can deliver that show for 20% less. It'll be a different show, but we'll still make it. Whereas on this one, because animation were involved, and everyone fell in love with that original pitch, animation basically said to Disney Plus, this pitch is what we want to make. We can't cut back in any way. Encanto's been so loved, well received. It's such a valuable property to us. It's so precious that we want exactly what's on this paper. All of these ideas, all of the kind of imagination, all of the ambition we want to see. So it allowed us to then go, we need a video floor. We were like, sure, we don't want to let them down. We promised a video floor. We got a video floor. So we got 50 dancers, we had a video floor, everything that we could think of to make this magical. Disney were incredible partners. They signed off, and the end result is something where there's been absolutely no compromise, and every head of department got whatever they needed to make the best show they possibly could.
Yeah, that's amazing. But kind of like with that free reign, what are you pulling back on, and what are you being like, let's go for it? Because I think some of the amazing elements in this, even like the AR effect of it all. And so I'm wondering, like,
AR was a real lame addition. We were like, wouldn't it be great? At this point they were like, dude, come on, you signed everything off. But AR was late. I think that the main thing for us was to get Jamal and his 50 dancers, and to have ways of projecting and helping with the physical set of the casita. Misty Buckley, who's an incredible set, built a whole set, and I think that really it was that fusion of the dancers, the physical build, and the projections around it. We really wanted to light up the proscenium, because it's so iconic, and so that was the kind of starting point. And then literally, one of those, when you're making a show like this, you need every head to give their best, every head of department. So you've got 10, 15 heads of department, everyone needs to be on. So you need to say to everyone, like Jamal, listen, you know dancing, I don't. You tell me how many you need, and you tell me what you need, and then my job is to go and get it for you. And that's
a dream. That's a dream to be told that, Because I was like, are you sure? Yeah. Whatever you need. I'm like, okay, well, we can do some things then. And that was like I guess for me, it's kind of what you said. We'll get into a project, and then they'll say, oh, but you can only have X amount of dancers. Oh, and you can only dance there. And oh, you can't do this. There wasn't a no in this process, and that's what I value so much, because we're constantly as creatives being told, no, well, it would be good, but maybe the next time or whatever. And I'm like, this was the time everybody was so supportive, and the vision was carried out from all of our Zoom calls, and that was a whole other.
Yeah, that's a whole thing. We basically made the show on Zoom. But we also, sometimes you get really lucky. The team that you assemble, the energy of that team, everyone having the same vision really. And just to give you an example of a bit of luck that I think sometimes you don't get, was when the set first came in. The beginning of the show was supposed to be the physical doors of the casita were supposed to open. When they got delivered, they were too heavy, so we had to have them set open. So we needed to come up with a beginning, a new beginning for the show. And just because we had everyone in harmony working so well together, we managed as a team to devise a new beginning, which was, as soon as Lynn said he was going to be there, was that we would shoot it from the top, and we'd turn all the lights off, and that Lynn would jump on the floor, and it would light up the whole thing. And that probably came about between about 5 or 6 of us, I don't know, 1 hour before dress. And then you've got projection guys going, right, well, we've got 24 hours to make this work. And then everyone just went, and then the first time we saw it, all of us were like, wow. We thought that was not as good as the original. When we saw it, we were like, I can't believe we never thought of this. But it takes a real chemistry and a real good production unit to make stuff like that happen. And we got lucky, we had the best in the business in every department. And that makes a job like mine super simple, because you just go, what do you need? I'll get it for you, you do the rest.
For sure, and it's so great to hear kind of the benefits you all had. But Jamal, I was wondering, you already mentioned that you worked on the film as well. What was the challenge of readapting your work now for a live event? I mean, you did get your 50 dancers, so that's a plus.
We did. I mean, the challenge, I think, for me, it was our time. We didn't have a lot of time. I think we had 3 weeks total to do this, and which isn't a lot of time, especially when you're dealing with this big space like the Hollywood Bowl, because we wanted to fill almost immersive. We wanted the audience to feel like they were involved, and so how to get, and I really wanted the dancers to be out, I wanted the performers to be out in the audience, and so, but we only had maybe 4 days on stage before we filmed, so just, those were the kind of things that were the challenge, but everything else felt like when the spirit of the dance really told the story, if that makes sense. Like, our dancers were so proud to be doing this film and this music and this story that it translated. Like, I think if we would have had one light, it would have been amazing. You know what I mean? Just because they were on stage, and then when we were sitting in there, I was like, I hope this translates on television, because the feeling that you got in the bowl was like, whoa. And then I hope, and then we saw it, and I was like, yes, it translated on television. So that was the big.
That was what the AR was. We had to give a few extra things for TV, just, you know, because you're right, when you walked into the bowl and the light and stuff, it was mind-blowing, really.
I did hear the audience still got the butterflies, though, and certain elements.
On
if you
the
look up
side
the
screens, yeah, they got on the side screens.
But I think what I wanted to talk about is like, I heard there were challenges with the bowl itself, and there was kind of this crunch up period where you were actually transferring the work that you had planned to the actual venue. So what was kind of that challenge of actually being able to rehearse a little bit at the bowl?
Well, you know, so partly the set was big and heavy and didn't move the way that we thought it would, and we had to build out, which they'd done before, but we had to build out. But I think the thing that made me the proudest about all of it was the guy that, I can't remember his name now, but the guy that basically runs that venue and puts shows in there, basically said, production-wise, this was the best show they've ever had there. And like, I remember the first time we went in there, they would show us the history of who's performed there, what's happened there. And part of, I think a month or two before we did it, I had gone to see Diana Ross there with my wife, just to try and experience like yeah, and I was like, oh wow, like we got to go up against it, and then obviously for the end, for them to say, I think that usually that's a venue where people don't bring that much stuff from outside in, or maybe I hadn't seen it. And most of the pictures and images I'd seen of people playing that space were in there, and it was very recognisable that they were there, didn't do too much to the space, and just did great production on stage. I think the build was really ambitious, but you know, it all boils down to that first recce we went up to the top, and we were like, if you can build the casita here, then we'll win. And I think when that first time when it lights up and you see it, you're like, wow, this is incredible. So they, you know, they were great to work with the bowl, and
yeah, I totally agree. We had another challenge that we had where the dancers, because the bowl isn't set up like that, there's only X amount of dressing rooms. We had to build our wardrobe to across the street, across the parking lot, so the dancers would have to come off stage and not just go to a quick change. They would have to run all the way across. It was madness backstage. It was actually a choreographed dance back there. And so it was like they'd get off stage and then choreograph backstage. So, and we had one day, we had a family and friends that we couldn't get through because all of the costumes we had so many costumes.
I remember that. The debrief after that was like, we can't have people running in between, changing on the way. Yeah, I remember that now. I blocked that out.
There were seemingly some necessary changes that had to be made. I can imagine just because of people's availability, like we don't see John Mazama or Renzi. But what was sort of spinning that into something that could be a benefit? Because thinking of the things you added, like absolutely I cried at the children's choir. I think having Carlos come out and perform was so fun, and I imagine sort of like a piece for you. And so what were some of the elements that weren't going in, like, this is what we're
Well,
going
the kids' choir, I didn't realise how hard in England it's much easier to make a piece of content like that, like the kids' choir. Here it's a lot more complicated. So we, in production in the UK, gone, yeah, we'll just do this, it'll be no problem. Once we got into it, we were like, wow, that was hard. And I think had we known how hard it was, we might not have done it. But I think we felt like it's something which we do at Full Well a lot, which is like, you're a live music and dance show, but you want to have that entertainment element to it. And I think that we wanted to bring those kind of tape bits that really made you feel the emotion of the story. And you know, what beats a choir, a children's choir coming out, their first ever opportunity performing anywhere, who love the show, who sing Dos Aritas in front of an entire audience. You know, that magic, tapping into that, shooting a little film about that, I think just really kind of elevated the show, and it was just a joy to be able to do something like that.
Yeah. You had to deal with the large Bruno puppet, Jamal? That was...
Yeah, it almost didn't fit. Almost didn't fit. And but again, it goes back to those things of everyone wanted to make it work, and that was like the best part of this whole thing. Like kind of what Gabe was saying is that because we had every department wanting to make it work, we made the puppet work, you know, and it was like, okay, we're gonna have to lay him on the side, we're gonna have to drag him up the thing, and then right at the last minute, we pop him up, and I was like, if you guys can make that happen, I would be so grateful. Because I promised a big Bruno that's gonna walk through the audience, and then to see the kids, their eyes light up when this big, I mean, some were afraid, but some were so excited, and that's why we do, that's why we do what we do, right? It's like, just to see the joy on their face, and it's the magic of Disney as well, like to be able to translate that from an animated film to, you know, stage and live as well.
For sure. And of course, these are celebrations of individual achievements, but with something of this scope, one of the amazing things is just a feat of creative collaboration. And so just as we close, what were kind of the challenging components or maybe even mishaps and sort of everyone coming together trying to execute this show?
As Jamal just pointed out, so we had only ever run the show through once before opening night. And that once was a complete disaster in every single way. If you saw that run through and you saw the first show, you would not believe the same people were behind the camera. It was that bad. And so I think the biggest thing that we had given everyone the opportunity to give their best, right? As Jamal said, everyone was out there trying to do their best. But when you're striving to your best, you're just pushing the limits of what you can and can't do. So the puppet was the greatest puppet ever, but we couldn't get it in. You know, everything was like the greatest ever, but to make everything work together, the first time we tried it was basically impossible. So then, the biggest challenge was you've got all these incredible elements. How's it all going to go together? How can we get everyone's timings and work together? And as Jamal said, everyone wanted to come up with solutions because everyone's best work was there. And you know, it's the easiest, my job is the easiest job in the world when you're working with Jamal, with Misty, with Chris, with all of these incredible people that are the best in their field. So when they dream big, they then also work with each other to solve any problems that will prevent those big dreams from coming to reality. So, I mean, it was tough, and it was the craziest day ever the day before, but, you know, it's credit to these guys. They solved it, we got there, as I said, we came up with solutions, we sat and worked together, and then, you know, and the thing that stays in my mind the most is, just after we finished, the way the dancers party, I felt like I'd never partied before. I watched that party and I was like, wow, okay, I'm in the wrong line of work here. These guys, they were unbelievable.
It was so exciting. I think the biggest challenge for me was doing this over Zoom, because they were on a different time, they're in a different time zone than we are, and so we're all trying to make our schedules work, and then we get on this Zoom call, and then we talk about doing this huge production at the Hollywood Bowl, and everybody's talking, and I'm trying to figure out who's who and what and at the end of the call, they would say, okay, everybody okay? And everybody's like, okay, see you, ciao, bye. And then they would hang up, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. This is, I don't know if it's a real set, or if it's a virtual set, or if you know what I mean? Like, it was so, that was the hardest part.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, if you're dreaming something up from scratch, there's no comparison. It's not like other shows you make where you go, it's this, fused with this, and we're going to do that. This show, I don't know what else is like it out there. So you can't say to someone, trust us, we got this, it's this, this, and this. We were just like, if the dancers are good, it will look great. Okay.
Well, as you all just saw, you guys made it happen magically. So let's give it up one more time for tell everyone to check out Encanto at the Hollywood Plus and enjoy the reception.
That's Neuehouse, Hollywood.